All right. So my name is Anne-Marie Clulow, and I actually was a singer and saxophonist and performer for about 30 years. And one day I was performing in a show called Cats. And when I hit one of the top notes, I had this, an experience I couldn't describe to anyone, including my husband, who is the cameraman, the long-suffering man over there. We've been together for 28 years, so yes, give him a round of applause. And I had this awakening, and I had a voice in my head that said I was about to go on to some sort of lovely spiritual journey. So I walked off stage in tears thinking, I'm going to learn yoga and I'm going to wear white, and I'm going to be very holy and people are going to come and listen to me all the time. And then a couple of years later, I realized what that meant. And I was like, really? Sexuality? How is that spiritual? Talking about people's genitals. I don't want to do that stuff. I really didn't. But it was a calling, and it kept calling me back. I kept trying to escape, and it kept calling me back until eventually I gave up. And I said, okay, well, if I'm going to teach this stuff, I'm going to teach it in a way that it feels relevant and it's actionable and it's beautiful and it's pleasurable and all of those things. So I've done some Neo-Tantra work. I've done some Tantra work. I've done some Taoist sexual work, worked with the Kundalini, worked with the life force energy, all of those sorts of things. And this is what we're going to talk about today, is what happened to me last year, is I went into hospital to have an emergency hysterectomy. I thought I had it waxed when it came to, excuse the pun, but I thought I knew what I was doing when it came to intimacy and amazing pleasure experiences, et cetera, et cetera. And then I went into hospital to have this emergency hysterectomy. And while we were in there, I woke up in high care because things had gone wrong during the surgery, not majorly. And my husband came to visit me and said, you didn't wake up in the room you were supposed to wake up in because, there was a problem with your breathing and blah, blah, blah. And of course, I started to panic. And he did one of the techniques on my feet and on my legs. And until that point, I couldn't sleep. And he started doing what we teach as a sensuality technique on my feet and on my legs. And I fell asleep deeply. And I think it was also the drugs. I will be honest. I don't think I'm that spiritual. I think it was the drugs as well. But I had another experience of understanding how intimacy and connection is so important when it comes to healing. So that's with yourself and also with your partner or partners, depending on what your belief system looks like. So what I want to say to you first and foremost is it going to work for me? Yes. There is only one nervous system for pleasure and for pain. This is important to remember because we think that the nervous system for pain is different to the nervous system for pleasure. It isn't. So we need to understand how the nervous system works a little bit so that we can get feedback for healing and for bliss and relaxation. Bliss and relaxation are deeply healing in a lot of ways that we don't understand when we first go into a healing space from a sick space. So your nervous system priorities are to keep you alive. So it's hard to heal in survival mode. When we're depleted, we go into survival mode. When we're in survival mode, we perceive others as a threat. So when you are needing healing and you're actually needing other people around you, what happens is you tend to become quite antisocial and grumpy. So when we are healing, generally speaking, let's say we go in and we have surgery and we come out of surgery, what do we normally get? We get some physical rest sometimes, and we get some sleep sometimes. But a lot of these other things don't happen. When you move into the healing space, we don't move into the healing space fully. What tends to happen is we get stuck on a little bit of sleep and bed rest, but our mind's going mad, our social plans are going mad, the bills are piling up, all these things are happening at the same time. So we don't get to move into the correct nervous system for bliss and relaxation, which is also the parasympathetic nervous system. And that is the rest and digest system, which we need to heal our bodies. It's also the nervous system that's most common to be in when you have an out-of-body experience or a spiritual experience. So thinking about libido and sensuality are affected by these things. Now, you know this if you've ever lost your sex drive and lost your sort of lust for life, or your partner, if you've been in a long-term relationship and you've been sick, libido disappears. Extended adrenaline states, extended distress, don't know if you're going to keep your job, worried about what's going to happen in the future. Certain medications, SSRIs, antidepressants, hormonal replacements, etc., etc. So you have to learn how to relax into bliss and sensuality. Because when you can actually make the decision to relax and move into the different types of rest in the parasympathetic nervous system, you've got more chance of healing. And then you're in the parasympathetic nervous system and your libido has a chance of returning. And if we learn how to relax into bliss and into sensuality, we can separate sensuality out from sexuality. They are not the same thing. They've got a lot in common. But being sensual is not the same as being sexual, which is why I came up with the term sensualness. Because sensuality, when you say that to people, they're like, it's just a little bit too uncomfortable for me because that's still in the same line as sexuality. No, it's a conscious decision to be using your senses and to be sensual and to change into the parasympathetic nervous system so that you can deeply relax and feel bliss and rest and digestion and all of those things that the healing system needs in your body. Okay, we don't need to go through all of this, obviously, but this is the wheel of intimacy. There's a dance that happens in your body, and for everybody, it's different. So we were speaking a little bit about contractive and expansive pleasure. Again, this is the dance that happens between the two. So contractive is your adrenaline and new relationship energy, feeling very turned on, that fire. And it's delicious. It's not wrong, but it's one experience. So my husband rubbing my feet in the hospital and then I fell asleep was a huge awakening for me. I was thinking he's using a technique we use for intimacy and it's sending me to sleep. And that's what made me start thinking about healing and our approach to healing and intimacy and how we can be laying hands upon one another to help heal as well. Why sensual relaxation is different. It's not the same as generalized relaxation. It's a somatic experience. It takes priority in the body. You can use the sensualness techniques for healing and for pleasure because they release oxytocin. Oh, I promise you I haven't been drinking. It's just been a long day. Conscious touch releases endorphins and oxytocin, and life force energy is deeply linked to sensuality. But the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And this is happening faster and faster and faster in our world at the moment. So those are the thoughts I'm leaving you with. The nervous system is the same. Sexuality and sensuality are not the same thing. And if you learn sensuality and sensualness techniques, you can use them in your healing, in your intimacy, in your partnership, and in your life. It's not just stuff about sex. It's about everything. Let's integrate it. Let's put it together and have a lot more pleasure and play in the world.